come once again to discuss things.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Super2. Joining me today is Steve Baxley, the hardest working man on YouTube, and one Mr. Connor Nielsen. And Connor Nielsen is here for one very specific purpose. He watched Caligula with us, and I've just decided that anytime we're going to talk about a really awkward, strange movie that involves very, very visual, very disturbing sexual scenes, Connor shall join us.
All right.
That's my plan. I hope he's okay with this. We're just gonna ruin sex for Connor Nielsen.
You should have done It Follows with us then.
Oh, I love It Follows. I would have loved
too.
it.
That movie terrified me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Steve, what are we talking about that's so sexually horrifying this time?
All right, so today we are talking about a 2013 Scottish film based on a book of the same name called Filth.
Yeah, and it's done by the same guy that did Trainspotting.
Yes.
And so, if anyone's ever wanted to see Obi-Wan Kenobi crawl out of a toilet, you should go watch Trainspotting.
Yes, so I mean, this director's got quite a bit of a rep for doing more, not disgusting per se, but at least disturbing imagery, and he's also just very crude, but in an interesting way, and we'll talk about some of that, because part of why I wanted to pick this movie is because I just recently read an entire paper on how this film is a parallel and satire of Scottish history.
Okay, so, like, you know me, I consider myself a bit of a history buff, but I've never really looked up anything on Scotland, so I'll definitely be interested to get into that, and you can talk about how it does parallel. Only thing I really know about Scottish history is, Mary, Queen of Scots, and then a little bit around the Thatcher era, and then, the whole referendum thing they had recently.
That should be sufficient, because a lot of what I read in that paper wasn't exactly like incredible. I've never heard this kind of information. It was more of just like general feeling. This is the atmosphere of the time, and this is what the movie's doing in regards to those three very particular eras it talks about.
Okay, well, so I got on Twitter while I was watching this movie today, and it's still my ultimate review for this movie. What the fuck am I watching, Steve Baxley?
Before we get to anything deep and disturbing and potentially any arguments or taste issues or anything like that, I think we can start this off with the one premise I think all three of us will absolutely agree on, which is James McAvoy is fantastic.
Oh, certainly.
He is remarkable in this movie.
I think James McAvoy, watching him in this movie and just in other stuff that I've seen him in, might be one of the 5 best actors working today. He is so excellent, and watching him kind of unchained in a leading role is just a marvel to behold. He is amazing in this movie. He's
got such command of the camera. He works so well, because part of what you see is by the end, he looks directly at the camera, and a lot of times when you hear actors, particularly Kevin Spacey because of House of Cards, talk about scenes like that where characters break the fourth wall, it's very difficult to frame a shot where you're immersive and then you break that by having the character look at the camera and acknowledge the audience. And getting that to work is often pretty difficult. So having McAvoy do a voiceover and then end the film on that note with the way he's standing on top of that chair and about to kill himself, that's really well directed stuff, and it's really well acted stuff. He nailed that so well by the end. It's one of the best final shots to a movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, I could agree with that. It is really hard. Like, see, in a lot of my movies, I'm wearing sunglasses because I cannot break the habit of not looking at the camera. But then, if you ever notice when I'm doing my vlogs, the one thing I never do is fucking look at the goddamn camera. I don't, like, what wires are crossing my heads I will never understand. But, like, I don't know, because most of the time I'm at least partially directing whatever we've done, so I'm kind of curious where the camera is and what's going on. So I think that might be why, but regardless, yeah, it is really hard when you're directing, to work around a camera a lot of the times, just from a amateur actor thing. And you train yourself so much to not look at the camera, because you got to think about it. Sometimes there's all this shit going on right behind the camera, right in front of your face, and you got to turn off that part of your brain that goes, "Oh, hey, look over there." So when an actor is able to like do it and make it seem natural, it is really, really impressive.
Yes.
Because it does come out of left field, and it looked really good. One thing since we're talking about kind of the direction and stuff, and I guess this will kind of move more broadly into the visual style, the look of the film, his eyes, and like a lot of people's eyes, are just so damn vibrant.
Yep, and
Did
that's
you
also
notice
intentional.
that? Yeah, like his eyes are just so fucking blue. Just like, it looks like he's wearing, fluorescent contacts or something. And a lot of other characters have that same kind of look to their eyes. They just pop out of their skull, nearly.
Some of that is actually digitally enhanced, because the movie's very much about identity. The movie's very much about identity, but it's also about perception. So it's doing something very intentional with everyone's eyes. And if you see in specific scenes early on, when you don't know what this guy is doing and you don't know his home life, and when you think he's got it all together, if you go back and look at his eyes, they've got a hint and color of them that make it look like he's either high or drunk at all times.
Wow.
And it's one of those movies that it watches completely differently the second time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Fight Club in that way. Like, if you don't know the ending of Fight Club by now, which is commendable, then it's a different movie on the second viewing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give this movie a second viewing, though.
That's fair.
I'll be perfectly honest, because it's not just that it's disturbing, it's just that it's very meandering. There's just a lot of things that, at least to me, don't really seem like they serve much of a purpose other than to just show how fucked up this guy is. Like, it's kind of like reading the American Psycho book, if anyone's ever done that. There's a lot of stuff in that really gives you a fine amount of detail about how messed up in the head Patrick Bateman is, but then it just goes to complete excess and perfectly describes every detail about every single thing to, frankly, just to sicken you, because there's at least 3 to 4 pages of him describing cutting someone open with a chainsaw after shoving a live rat inside their vagina by luring it in with spray cheese. Like, there's a very extended period of time in which that is described in excruciating detail. So yeah, it's kind of got that stuff where there's just a lot of stuff that's going on, and I don't think it serves much of a purpose other than to shock you.
Ian, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, because what you were saying about how Filth is very meandery and is just shocking and there's not really much of a point to it. No, that's Caligula. But I don't know. I felt like this movie is made with such a style and such a vision, and there's so much creativity happening. And to be fair, I only just watched the movie. I'm still kind of reacting to it and letting it sink in. But I feel like, and then we also have James McAvoy giving an amazing performance. That I'm still trying to figure out like what this movie is trying to say, and what it's about. But as Steve was saying, it's all about identity, and when it kind of does have those meandery sections, it's this guy losing his mind and losing his identity, and I think that there's stuff there that.
I guess it's partly because I've seen it done better then. If it is about that, I've seen that stuff done better, particularly like Pink Floyd The Wall, I think does, to be fair, they have the benefit of music, but they don't have the benefit of dialogue, so I think it kind of evens out. Pink Floyd The Wall deals with someone just falling into madness, distancing themselves slowly from the world. And I think that doesn't really meander around or anything. Everything's very direct. There's just scenes in this where I'm not really sure what exactly we were trying to get at, other than to just shock us. Like, particularly some of the hallucination moments, a lot of what they're doing when they go to, what is it, Amsterdam or whatever, that seemed kind of superfluous to me.
I think part of that is just only having watched it once, because when I first saw it, I would agree with you, because at that point I wasn't really sure what the movie was trying to do with not only some of its side characters, but some of its side adventures. And when you go back and you watch it again, and you understand the context and what the satire of this movie is really trying to be, and all of it really folds together and all of it really works. Everything from the individual candidates that are trying to get the promotion to his best friend and his confession to his best friend at the end, all of that tied together with that recurring line of same rules apply, and how the whole movie is a very intricate game to get us there. I guess this is a good place to bring this in, but basically what the paper I read and what I've seen with the director talk about with this movie is there are three very specific points in Scotland's history where it tries to carve out some form of independence. And we saw that somewhat recently in 2014, but it also happened in 1997, and it happened one more time before that in 1979. And interestingly, every act of the movie, all three of its acts, parallel each one of the political situations that led up to each one of those referendums and why they ultimately didn't end up working. And part of the point of the movie is that before this writer, because this is based on a book, but before this writer came along, Scottish literature didn't have an identity. Scottish literature was English literature. It was basically everything you found in Robert Burns' poems. It was all very traditional. It was all very basic aristocratic stuff. And so this book was written as a very direct response to that, and took everything that the Scottish found proper because everyone else found it proper, and reversed it. And so a lot of the quote-unquote hideous and horrific acts that you see in the movie are not only parodies of Scottish society, but also the type of literature Scotland was reading at the time. And when you get to stuff like the police department, and you have that great line where he says that he saw police brutality and he wanted to join in on it, the stuff about like photocopying the penises and taking the drugs and all of that just plays into these people's need to escape in things that aren't really true. So Scotland's need to forge an identity by assuming someone else's over and over and over again, never really learning their lesson. And by the end, both the book and the movie have that fatalistic note where it's not really going to work that way, because identity is in and of itself something that is intersubjective and something that's formed by people you interact with. And because this character can't bring himself to accept his own identity, he has to die. And so this writer, and by extension the country as a whole, are not convinced that Scotland will ever have its own identity.
Yeah, and I guess they get into that kind of stuff when they talk about sexual preferences, and also having him be a cross-dresser at one point. And surely it's brought on by kind of a delusional state, but still, that's not something that you approach in something about identity by accident. There's a lot of commentary in that, I'd definitely say.
And again, I mean, it's again one of those things where you watch it more than once and the scenes start to click more, because it's a really short movie, so it crams a lot into certain scenes, and it crams a lot into just certain lines of dialogue that you might miss the first time around.
One thing I since we're talking about identity, I think this is kind of a good place to bring it up. From what I understand, this movie was terribly marketed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, all the trailers, from what I understood, like, kind of sold it as a dark comedy about a bastard cop, kind of like a Bad Santa situation. and it's just not like, I mean, it's got dark comedic moments, but you know, there's a scene where someone kind of rapes a child here, you know?
Yeah.
Or teenager, whatever, but that's...
She was below the age of consent, so technically it would be raping a child.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I don't like to throw the word around because, you know, rape brings up a very definite image in your mind, and I like to kind of preserve that because I don't like the idea of weakening what that means. So, I mean, it's clearly sexual harassment, sexual assault, statutory rape, certainly. There's blackmail. There's a lot of things you can throw at it, but yes, rape does apply, and so it is. You know, you have your main character rape a child, albeit briefly, but still, that doesn't make it any less fucked up.
Right.
And so that's, you know, it's not something that you can watch as a dark comedy at that point. I think at that point it's over. It's no longer a dark comedy, right? Like, there's still kind of funny humor moments, but anyone in the theater is totally justified to leave at that scene, right?
Which is something that they expected. James McAvoy talks about in an interview how this is a movie that people are going to get up and leave the theater midway through, and he doesn't blame them. And it's because the movie was advertised as a Shane Black kind of thing, and it's not. It's nowhere near close to that.
It's funny, I just watched Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I love
again.
that movie.
Me too. It's just funny you brought that up. It is really, really poorly marketed in that case then, because that's kind of sort of what I expected from just, you know, the name, and there's a brief blurb about it on the Netflix thing, but I heard a lot of I was kind of curious about the last line of the movie and what exactly that meant, so I went and looked up some forums, and people were talking about that and the marketing for the movie kind of betraying what it was really about.
It's funny how when you said that you guys were going to be talking about Filth, I was like, oh, is it an adaptation of The Filth?
The Grant Morrison book, yeah.
I love that book, and then I was like, oh, this is not that book.
No.
The book
you
is
have
also
to watch
very fucked up.
horrible things, Connor. Next week, Human Centipede 3.
Oh, boy. Gotta watch a marathon of all 3 Human Centipedes, then.
That's going to be a
Well,
very
you gotta
interesting
understand the context of the story, man.
So when it also comes to, like, there's a animal symbol association in this.
Yeah, I mean, like, his hallucinations, I assume this is slang over there too, but I don't know. Is pig slang for cop over there as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, he sees himself as a pig, and I think he sees one of his coworkers as a pig as well.
Yes.
So that was fairly obvious. He saw the one female detective as a, you know, wicked witch. He even throws that one out there for her. Saw the one lady that was trying to get on top of him as like a hawk or something.
Yeah.
Saw one of his coworkers as an elephant. So I was trying to, like, I didn't want to take it too far, but I was trying to unravel some of the symbols there, because you just, you know, you can't give me pig and then not expect me to read into the other ones.
Yeah, that was something, like, his coworker, played by Jamie Bell, is, you know, revealed to be the wolf, and he's the pig, and I mean, I feel like to an extent there's something there, but after a while, I mean, it gets a little overdone, and I think some of them really don't start to mean anything. Like, that's a bird, and I mean, that's slang for British lady, I know, but I mean, what else is there besides?
Part of it is that they mean something early on, and then they start to lose that, because the more he's losing his grip on who he is, the less things start to mean anything. Like, you have that very first scene with his doctor where he's picking up the pills, and that's very formal, that's very natural, you know exactly what's going on there. And then around that same time, you get the first pig image, and so you know very clearly this is what he sees himself as, this is what he sees his coworkers as. But the more the movie goes on, and the more he's losing it, and the more he's unsure of who he is, the more his hallucinations stop making sense, because he doesn't really know how he's reading things anymore. There's a point where he's not really speaking, he's just kind of talking gibberish, and a lot of that's intentional. again, I think this is just one of those things where it's a really different movie, and I don't know if I'd even recommend it to people despite really liking it.
Yeah, I kind of have the same experience.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing you kind of keep to yourself, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious to see what you guys would think of it. Mostly because Ian, I know you're a history guy, so I wondered if you picked up on any of the Scottish stuff, but I wasn't sure.
Like I said, I'm just Scotland. It's not really. It's weird because I'm Irish, so we're very, very or I'm part Irish, so we're very close people. We're the first two colonies of England, really.
Right.
I'm Irish and Mexican, so two horribly oppressed peoples, by European powers. No, but it is one of those things. I know vaguely things about Scotland. Like I say, Mary Queen of Scots is always kind of a fun story.
Right.
And another interesting movie is The Last King of Scotland, which has absolutely nothing to do with Scotland and has James McAvoy in it. So, you got that. I think Forrest Whitaker too.
Yeah, he won a Oscar for that.
Yeah. But no, I don't know a ton about it. A little bit about the whole Thatcher era. She had her whole plan of everyone's going to go to a flat tax rate. Everyone's going to be charged the exact same rate on their taxes, and we're going to start this program in Scotland because that was a great idea. But no, I don't really keep a whole lot of tabs on Scotland. It's kind of just the people that wear the kilts in my mind.
With the bagpipes.
Yeah, the bagpipes and the kilts.
Well, I know. Sean Connery comes from there, so.
Yeah, there we go.
And I mean,
I'll say that the movie was definitely a culture shock when I first started watching. I'm very much in Scotland. I had to turn on the subtitles for a little bit because it was really hard to understand what they were saying. And then
yeah, it took me a minute too. I had that same thing with Train Spotting. You kind of get used to it throughout, but that first 20 to 30 minutes, I was not quite. I was getting probably 75% of everything, and it helps that it's a very well told story visually.
Yeah, and they also throw around Scottish slang that I have no idea what some of it means. But as you just said, it's very well directed and very well visually told that I was picking up on things, and there were some visual cues that got answered later, and I learned to trust the movie as it went on, and I found it to be it didn't let me down.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to do that culture shock to you right away because the opening monologue from James McAvoy's character as opposed to Carol is everything about Scotland and everything he loves there. And so everything he's narrating, you see the complete reverse of in the society there. So he's got that scene where he's saying all Scottish people are great, and then you see the overweight people, the girl smoking while she's pregnant, and the guy who's
You see the three vices right there. You see one guy drinking, one person smoking while they're pregnant, and then isn't someone else doing drugs or stuffing their face or whatever?
Something like that. And then he passes bagpipes and he covers his ears. It's at the very beginning, it's all very much this is what people think of Scotland as in how he's relaying it, and this is what Scotland actually is. and both of them are extremes, and there's no middle ground, and that's again sort of the point of the movie, which is that Scotland doesn't stand on anything. The identity of that state doesn't stand on anything, and that's the cultural problem.
Yeah, and there's a very similar thing in Train Spotting, because it's also very much about the whole drug culture. That I mentioned Obi-Wan Kenobi crawling out of a toilet, and seriously, if you've never seen Obi-Wan Kenobi crawl out of a toilet, you owe that to yourself.
I did. I saw the Star Wars prequels.
Ouch! Shots fired.
Rimshot sound effect would have been perfect there.
Oh, damn, Steve. Ouch.
Someone's gonna hate me for that, but I don't care. I thought it was funny.
It was good. It was good, man. You get a feather in your cap for that one.
Right, I got two.
No, there's that whole scene, it's kind of the most famous shot of the movie, I think, where Obi-Wan Kenobi crawls out of a toilet because he's fucking blasted on heroin, and it's like his last shot or whatever, and it's like apparently one of the side effects of heroin is it makes you really have to shit. And so he runs into like the worst dive bar in all of Scotland to go to the bathroom, and it's just fucking disgusting as hell. And like he starts tripping out while he's on the can, and just imagines himself falling into the toilet and crawling back out. It's absolutely disgusting. And like so there is a lot of that similar thing of just here's the most ugly thing you could possibly imagine about a city. Or a region of the world, if you will.
Yeah.
And that really holds up here. So one thing I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to say disappointed, but I was like hoping or expecting something very different. With the whole thing with his wife at the beginning and finding the Japanese kid that gets killed or whatever. I was actually kind of hoping for kind of like a mystery turnaround that she was going to be the one to have killed him, and he was going to find that out through his investigation and would have to figure out a way to, get his promotion without having to send his wife to jail. That was kind of where I thought that story was going, and no, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a very different movie.
Yeah, but I mean, it also could have been... Because, like, he's got that Frank Underwood thing of only wanting power and all that shit. At least at the beginning of the movie, that's very much his character.
That's what he wants.
From what we are seeing, that's what he wants in the beginning of the movie.
Again, I don't think that's what he wants. I think that's just what he wants you to think he wants. Because the whole thing about that movie is just he was a kid that wanted attention and couldn't get it. And so the whole movie is just him on one massive guilt trip.
No, I agree with you, but I'm just saying, like, with what we're presented, say, in the first half hour, I think that was a pretty accurate summation of his goals, was kind of the Frank Underwood whole desire for power. Okay, sure. It definitely changes and evolves as you find out more about the character throughout, but, from the first half hour of the movie, because, like you say, it's very clearly broken up into different acts. From the first half hour of the movie, you have a very clear perception of this character, so I thought it was going to be a very interesting dynamic of how does he get what he wants but keep his wife out of trouble kind of thing.
Right.
Like moral dilemma kind of issue and on like the dark side of the law, I guess.
Right.
And it would have been a very different movie, and like the twist. See, I don't know. I don't think that twist is justified the more I think about it.
Why do you say that?
It's one of those things where when I was watching it, and you have to understand, I'm the most gullible movie viewer in the world. Like, I will believe whatever a story is telling me, and then if there's a twist, I'm always like, whoa, no way! So, when it kept cutting back to the Carol character, and then I realized he was never interacting with her, and she was only present in those weird...
almost noirish kind of shots.
Yeah, cutaways. I began to, I'm like, okay, I get it, movie. She's not a part of his life. Stop trying to make me think that, and I felt like I was getting set up for a twist. And then, when the whole twist is that, he's a homosexual because the movie tells us he's a homosexual, and I feel like, I'm
well, it's not that he's a homosexual.
But, okay, but anyways, but the thing is, then when it kind of came out with that twist, I mean, okay, so if he's not, I thought the whole thing was like he's suppressing his homosexual tendencies and taking stuff he doesn't like about himself and projecting them onto the others around him, so he can see himself as better than them because he doesn't like that about himself.
That's part of it. The big thing is that, and you get this when you go to the psychiatrist scenes and you look at the medication, but he's got bipolar disorder, so the whole thing is that he sees himself as his wife and he sees himself as himself, and both of it is just a manifestation of who he thought his brother was, that he accidentally killed as a kid. So he's just not there. There's his wife and there's his brother, and there's nothing in between, and you only really see Bruce as a character at the end when he dies.
Gotcha. For me, I didn't think the movie really earned that, like, Fight Club-esque twist, because, none of the subtleties are there. It it is all like when we see Carol discover the body, it's clearly Carol. There's no shadow over her face or anything. There's absolutely nothing to indicate that what we're seeing might not be real at that point. And that kind of bothered me.
I have to disagree. There's the blonde woman who gives Carol a funny look and doesn't run away, and then the movie actually goes back to that shot and being like, oh, that's a dude in drag, and then they leave.
Yeah, but
and I mean, there's also that shot where you see Carol's shots and you see what he's thinking in his mind of her, and then what he actually is. So they're comparing them to, and they're supposed to look different because you're in the two different characters' minds as you're seeing those shots. So when Carol's narrating, it's what he's thinking is happening. So it automatically looks different.
No, I'm just talking about like what we as the viewers see in the beginning, because there's what we clearly see is Carol. We don't see like any kind of hint that it might not actually be a woman.
Yeah, but I think that's the difference between
a character who sees something that we don't see. That's kind of different than giving the audience the hint. Because something like Fight Club, there's a lot of stuff like with Tyler Durden that clearly shows, yeah, he was never there.
But see, that's not what this movie's trying to do, though. Because I mean, it may not have those subtleties, but it's about that experience and that reveal in the context of itself. Like it's consistent with that, even if it's doing something different than Fight Club. Like the movie's not trying to hold your hand in that regard at all. It doesn't want you to figure that out. It doesn't care if you figure that out. That whole thing is just the shots when he thinks he's Carol are shot differently than when we're supposed to know that's not Carol.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if nothing else, those two things are consistent.
Fair enough. I just I was kind of put off by that because I thought it felt like it came out of left field, even though I could clearly tell probably by the third time we saw Carol. I'm like, okay, I don't think she's real.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's almost like the Scorsese kind of thing of like it's about the excess. It's bashing you over the head with something you already know because that's what he's doing. He's bashing himself over the head with something he already knows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got a question, Steve, and maybe you can answer this. When after the reveal, and it shows him in Carol drag, standing underneath that overpass or in that tunnel or whatever, and then that car pulls over, and people get out, and it's the thugs that killed the Japanese kid, and they shove him into there. Why is he there? How did they know he was going to be there? Why did that?
Yeah, it's a big plot hole.
It's not even really a plot hole. It's just kind of a. I feel like there's a chunk of the movie missing.
Or it's the very least a major convenience, right? For the sake of the plot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You could maybe make an argument that the kids are looking for this witness, but at the same time that they just happen to find him at like the right moment and everything.
That or he was going to them, so he knew she knew where they were to begin with, and were just leading to that area. Which is possible because he's investigating, but he may not be actively retaining the clues.
But then why?
I don't know. That seems like a stretch to me.
Why is he in the drag though?
Yeah.
Because Carol's the one that wants that, not necessarily him. So like the fact that he solves the case doesn't matter to him; it matters to Carol.
That's true. That is true.
So if anyone's going to find them, it would be Carol, not him.
Okay. That I think that it doesn't like fully satisfy. I think some of the external plot stuff, but
yeah, I mean it's a little convenient, but I mean it's okay because I think thematically and the character stuff gets us past that.
Okay, yeah, okay, you've convinced me. That does make a little.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I'd agree with you. It's like it's a problem, but it's so minor compared to the fact that it's like such a big character thing that I'll give it a pass.
And I haven't read the book, so I don't know if the book has like a different explanation or a different way that it handles that. But from what I understand, they're both very similar. The only difference is that you don't get a couple of scenes like there's very specific scenes in the beginning of the book where he's always setting the table for two. And then at the end of the book before he dies, he does the same thing where he still sets the table for two. Which is an interesting motif, and I wish we didn't lose that. But that seems to be the only major cutaway.
Yeah. There's some really nice stylistic and attention to detail in this movie. And the guy who made this, this is only one of 2 movies he's ever made.
Yep.
The other one being a movie called Cass, which I've never heard of. But I kind of want to see this guy do more because he does kind of have like a David Lynch, Danny Boyle, and kind of Shane Black-esque tendencies, and I really like those filmmakers. So
if anyone was going to do a Preacher movie, I think it should have been this guy.
yeah, and there's like at the beginning when he's watching pornography, and then the second a black man shows up, he gets really angry and changes the channel, and then that stuck in my mind. And then at the end, we see that his wife, when she and his daughter left, they're kind of his wife is with a black man now. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
And then the porn is always a blonde too. Like every time he's fantasizing, it's always a blonde.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought there were some interesting things there because, like, he could never reach climax when he's jerking off. He always has to be exercising power control over someone else.
Yep.
Or have manipulated someone else, I suppose. And the photocopier scene is pretty fucking hilarious.
It is.
I'm not
I also like that there's a scene that really felt like something out of a Lynch movie, and that's when we see Carol get into the car and the cab driver turns the radio up and starts singing along, and it doesn't really make much sense on a logical level, but it just felt very right, and it just added a surrealism that I think the movie was kind of going towards that realm, and it really, to me, naturally got us there.
And also just the song choice at that moment was Silver Lady, and that's absolutely perfect for this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess I don't know enough about the song. This did have some good ass music in it.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is awesome.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is great, and it's also just all the songs come at exactly the right moments. Like I mean, it might be a little bit telling in places, like it's a little too obvious, but it's really good about pairing the right lyric with the right scenes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Like Creep is playing right before he kills himself, and it's obvious, but it's really fitting.
Yeah, I also liked just the orchestral score of the movie.
Oh yeah.
It's not like a memorable stuff, but it does accompany the movie in a very nice way.
And just the independent Clint Mansell Same Rules Applies track is great.
I guess I have to listen to that isolated because I can't think of which one that is in particular. But.
So can we talk about the phrase "same rules apply"? Because I guess I just don't really Is that a cultural thing? Is that like a Scottish slang term or something?
I don't know if it's Scottish slang. I do know, though, that the whole same rules apply thing is essentially the linchpin of the argument of this is about Scottish history and Scottish change. Because if you ever study financial crisis, you realize that every time something happens, everyone in charge says, well, this is an isolated incident. That nothing like this has ever happened before, and yada yada yada, and that's just all bullshit. Because something like that has always happened in the past. And so, same rules apply is the Scottish version of that when it comes to finding independence, where you think you're going to finally get away from your controller, but it's all just one big game, and the same rules apply, and you're going to go back and do it again later. Like, it never really reaches an ending. And that's kind of the big joke of the movie, is that everyone's playing a game. Everyone's going for a very particular goal with very particular rules about how they ought to get there, whether it's the promotion, whether it's about satisfying a relationship, or whether it's about just seeing another person. Everyone's playing a game, and everyone's playing it in the same manipulative way, and so the same rules apply all the time, the joke being that no one ever gets an ending. No one ever actually gets there, or the goal is in such a state that where you're playing the game forever. And the game just keeps going in cycles. And so, by the end, when he says same rules apply and he dies, that's his only way out. That's how you beat the game, is by losing it on purpose.
Yeah, and it's weird because I think that does work because he has that literally his opportunity for change is right there at the end, right? Because
when he sees the other family and he has the chance to be someone else, and he doesn't take it.
Yeah.
I thought that was them turning away and leaving.
Yeah.
And then the chair just breaks under his weight. Like he took
No, he clearly jumps.
No, he clearly kicks it, and he waits there long enough so he doesn't die until they leave him alone. So he could have gotten off the chair and been with them and then started this circle all over again, but that's not how you end the game. So he just lets them go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I looked up some reviews of this, and somebody was saying how it's like a journey into a diseased mind, and that's kind of what it's about. But after reading that, I began thinking and how the movie almost mirrors a disease, how it just gets worse and worse and worse, and then right as it gets better, it dies. Like yeah. So I don't know. I kind of like that parallel.
Yeah. And again, the just the name of the movie fits with that, Filth.
Oh yeah, and I love the editing in this movie. It just gets more and more frenetic, and and then the narrative gets more and more loose, and I really really like that. It managed to get crazy without losing me, and I was always aware of what was happening in the story, and it managed to juggle everything pretty nicely.
And part of that, I think, is also just the color palette they use and how they're able to jump between like very clear melodrama to very vibrant to very grounded, and it never feels jarring.
Right.
One thing that I do like, it feels jarring at times, but it's very intentional. Of like, people look really fucking dirty, but they'll be in really really clean environments from time to time,
or vice versa.
Yeah, like there's that like lodge or whatever, the Brothers Lodge or whatever the fuck that thing was.
Yeah.
And like that place just looks super pristine, and parts of Bruce's apartment look super pristine and clean, but then other parts look really filthy, and then they'll be in some place that looks just absolutely like garbage, but they'll just look really clean by comparison. That's really interesting to me. Like the flower shop. Or I suppose that's the wrong way, because they look like shit, but the flower shop looks good. And then there's like, I'm trying to think of the other way around.
Where they're in a tunnel, and then Carol looks all clean and everything, and there's a dead body.
Yeah, like that one's a pretty good example. I'm trying to think of something that's like actually happening as opposed to, kind of fantasized thing. But that is a good example of the juxtaposition of tone. Anyone else slightly, like, I know it's kind of superficial, but is anyone else slightly disappointed there's never a title drop?
There's two, isn't there?
I think there's a couple, isn't? Yeah.
I guess I just never heard anyone say the word filth, or it didn't pop out to me.
I think when he's talking to the character Amanda on one of their staircase things, it's brought up.
Yeah, I think she calls him Filth, and then at the end of the movie, when the other guy gets the promotion and he's just condescendingly rubbing it in, he says it there.
Oh, no, he just says Frank to him, and that's like the thing that pisses him off.
No, I think it's somewhere else in that speech, though. If not there, I know the girl calls him that at some point.
Okay, I guess I missed it. Their fucking accents. It's funny. I was watching Aziz Ansari's new Netflix show, Master of None, and there's a scene where him and his friends sit there and watch through all of Sherlock, the BBC series.
Love that show.
Yeah, and his like big weird ass friend, and the dude's like 7,000 feet tall. His big ass friend is like, they're in the middle of what I think is like season 2 of Sherlock, and he goes, "Does anyone understand these British accents? Like, I love this show, but I've just been watching it for like 6 hours and I haven't understood a word."
That's awesome.
And like, I feel like I kind of felt like that at times in this movie. It's like, this is interesting, but I don't understand anything that's coming out of these people's mouths. It's kind of like listening to Grant Morrison talking to him.
That's exactly what it is.
It's like, whatever he's saying, I'm sure it's fascinating, but I don't understand a fucking word.
Like, at the end of if I ever meet the man, every time he talks, I just want to end every sentence with yes.
I don't know, I listened to his Kevin Smith podcast, and like, it's weird. I feel like you gotta let your ear adjust to it. Because it's not like it's a hard accent to understand, it's just that it's got a really specific rhythm.
Right.
And so you gotta let your ear adjust and get used to that before you can start to comprehend any of it.
Which is something you notice when you're trying to read Grant Morrison interviews in text, where you can't read it at your own pace. Like in your mind, you're reading it as if you were him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't read Grant Morrison slowly. I have to power through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do recommend his Kevin Smith podcast episodes. Those were pretty good.
Oh yeah, those are great.
Kind of, yeah, he outlines this whole, Batman life view thing, and he just talks about some of those interesting experiences and stuff on drugs. So,
Yep.
Anyway, Connor, what is something you wanted to bring up about this movie? Because you've kind of just been reacting to us.
I don't know. I mean, give me a second. I'll probably come up with something. But you guys have done a pretty good job of hitting all the points that I wanted to. And
Okay, well, let me ask you a question, because Steve's already seen this twice. Do you, at any point, see yourself sitting down and watching this again?
yes,
Okay, because I just can't.
that's one of those things. Is after watching, I'm like, oh, that was a really good movie. It has its issues, but I do think that it's one of those things that I really like, but I'm never gonna watch it again. I'd recommend it under with a bunch of asterisks, but but then maybe it's because I just got back from watching Dirty Grandpa and I hated myself for watching that. I was like, man, that Filth movie, that was thought provoking and interesting. Maybe I want to watch that again, but I would really like to sit down and decompress this and just kind of get all my thoughts out there. And so I guess I would watch it again. Get some distance between the first time, but I would.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think it's been a year since I first saw it, and then I just rewatched it today. So, Spaceworks is one of those movies that if you only watch it once, there's so much there that you will remember that it almost doesn't matter if you don't rewatch it immediately.
Yeah.
Like that ending shot, everything from the ending video up to that animated short that plays for the credits. That's at least in my mind impossible to forget. Like it's the perfect way to end the movie.
Okay, that's kind of where I guess I'll fight you on that, because I think some of the ending gets a little not repetitive but redundant. I kind of got the point of the ending, and it just kept going on. I honestly like if they cut it out when Jamie Bell gives his whole rubbing it in speech, and they just cut it at the end of there, like says Frank, gives him a wink, and then shuts the door, and it just cut there. I think I would have liked that better.
But I'd argue the video thing is necessary. Because if he doesn't explain this to another person, then it doesn't matter. Because that whole thing is that Frank's got no identity. Not Frank. I don't know why I said that. But Bruce has got no identity whatsoever. And then his best friend is just aping that identity. So if you don't give us the moment of lucidity where he explains this to that character, then that character's through line has no ending.
Well, I mean, I'd argue that because we're watching his story, and he internalizes so much, and when he does try to externalize it, like to Amanda, he just, hallucinates her as a witch and then freaks out and storms off. And I think if the audience is understanding it, I don't like that he had to explain himself to another human being. It just kind of felt like he was explaining it to the audience.
That's fair, because it might have worked better if they had like a face-to-face conversation.
Right.
At the same time, I think it works because so much of the identity that we're talking about here comes from interaction with other people. Like his whole bipolar disorder is there solely because of something he did to another person.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to talk about it with someone, and maybe the videotape was the weaker way of doing it, but I still think that whole speech he gives was necessary.
Well, maybe when it comes to like him talking about his best friends, he talks about the guy who is the sheep. I can't remember his name, but it's the guy he goes to that one place with.
Blades, I think.
Yeah. I just again from watching it once, I just kind of thought that Jamie Bell was his best friend because he was able to have a lot of control over him because he's a young and up and coming kid in the force. And then at the end, I didn't really see it as him rubbing it in until you said it, because I just thought he was like super excited about getting the promotion, and he was actually like he knew that Bruce was the phone caller, and he was like letting him get away with it as like a act as being a friend to him.
No, he was definitely rubbing it in because he's like, he calls him by Frank, and he's like, oh, well, I'm gonna be your boss now, and I've been thinking about how to deal with that, but, no mentioning all the crazy stuff I've done because I will not let you live this down otherwise.
Okay. Maybe I was
that's like
getting the wrong gauge on that whole relationship.
Oh, no, I mean, he's clearly like, I've got the power now. I used to be your bitch, but now you're mine, kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, that's an interesting parallel, because the other guy, who's actually his real best friend, that whole relationship is founded on Bruce needs to give this guy instruction, and no matter what it is, he will do it because Bruce said so. Whereas the other guy who gets the actual promotion, he's more of there in reactionary states, and every time Bruce interacts with him, he's not in his right mind. And so there's two very different kinds of examples going in two separate directions. So you need the closure with him rubbing it in, as well as the closure with Bruce realizing he's been a jerk.
Okay. I mean, I think and of course I haven't read the book, and I do like the movie, and I just have a couple issues with the way this ends. But do you think they could have just kind of combined maybe him talking, explaining and to another person, him explaining to Jamie Bell, thinking he's a friend, and then all of a sudden Jamie Bell turns around and calling him his bitch and everything, and then walks on out. I think after a while it kind of goes on a little too long, and the pacing feels redundant.
That's fair. I guess it's written a little clunkily. Is that the word?
Yeah.
It's a little clunky.
It's got Lord of the Rings syndrome. It ends too many times.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think what's being said is important, but there was definitely a better way to say it.
Yeah, I think some of the storytelling gets a little, yeah. But I get what you're saying, though. The whole, I think you're kind of turning me around on the whole him having to explain it, though.
Yeah, part of it is also just that it's a 97-minute movie, and it's so tightly packed for the whole thing except those last 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, I think the pacing is incredible, and I had to check the time a couple of it. It's only an hour and 37 minutes.
Yeah, which is surprising, but I think that might be why there's so much to dissect in that last scene. Is just because that's the only part of the movie where things slow down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that scene wouldn't really be as much of a problem if we didn't keep showing all these different things about how bad his life really is now. Like we have that reality shock moment after he throws the one guy out the window, and we really do break down all the shit things in his life now, because we get what is it, 2 or 3 scenes with different colleagues about his career now, and I feel like we could have gotten that all with one, with just the younger cop guy. I feel like that was the only scene of that quality that we needed.
Yeah, I think you could have had the thing at the supermarket where he sees his ex. You have the scene where he's just taking a shower and putting on the uniform, and then maybe the scene with the guy who gets the promotion, and then just intercut the video with him dying, and that's all good. But again, just to shorten some of that dialogue.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Because I think that whole he's taking a shower and he's got all those scars and cuts and stuff on his face is perfect symbolism for everything that's going on. We don't need any more images around that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because that's such a universal film image anyway.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's also a couple of when he throws the guy out the window, and then all his colleagues just kind of pop up. At first I thought it was a hallucination, but that really happens though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was weird too. I was like, wait, okay, I get the cops show up because someone just flew out a window. What happened to the other gang members?
I guess they ran. That the whole thing, when we see him in the dress, it all starts getting a little bit confusing because I don't know what's in his mind and what isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause he says, my husband's this detective or whatever. I'm like, okay, so now he has DID. What?
It's a little bit weird, but I also just feel like if I sat down and like tried to write and deconstruct some of that, it would make more sense. But just on a viewing experience, it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I mean, like, you should never have to write out what's going on in a movie. That should be communicated already. You have so many other sensory inputs, you shouldn't need to write it out.
Right.
So, yeah, that scene is just, like, a little weak. And like Connor was saying earlier, how they kind of just come upon him at the right moment. You could probably throw together an explanation for it, but it's never not going to be kind of a problem.
Yeah. And I guess to be fair, a lot of what we're talking about, at least as far as I'm concerned, I think most of this stuff is nitpicking it, but it's still all kind of hurts the overall score when we get to ratings.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I would call it nitpicking because I do think these are some legitimate problems. I just think that
I think the convenience is a legitimate problem. I think the rest is kind of nitpickish for me, at least.
I don't know. I feel like that's these are more problems with the plot than with the character thing, and it's clearly more of a character-focused story, so I don't mind as much.
Yeah, I think I'll go with Ian, how it's like the storytelling does get a little problemed as it goes along, because it starts off with great purpose, and so the actual movie starts off with great purpose, and it's, he's very chauvinistic and very confident, and then as the movie goes on, he becomes, a walking disaster, and the way the story's told kind of mirrors that, but I do think some of the storytelling gets a little muddled towards
right.
I think that is a legitimate problem with the movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'd have to agree with that as well. Okay, is there anything else anyone wanted to bring up real quick before we move on to ratings?
James McAvoy is still awesome.
Yes, and if there is a live-action Hellblazer or Justice League Dark movie, and we need a John Constantine, James McAvoy should do it.
Okay, this is nitpicky, Steve. Is anyone else just a little distracted and found it weird that his beard is ginger but his hair is black? Because that legitimately distracted the fuck out of me for like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
That is a very common thing.
I've never met anyone like that.
It's so common that there was actually this spur of newspapers doing articles on why that scientifically happens. It's really bizarre. I never actually read those articles, but apparently it's very common. I've just never ran into it aside from this.
I
saw that and I'm like, wait, what? Huh?
I have a ginger friend who has a blonde beard.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, that makes slightly more sense to me because those are at least somewhat similar palettes.
Yeah.
But black hair, red beard just are so polar opposites in my mind. I got over it, but it was legitimately distracting for a few minutes. I'm like, what did James McAvoy just not feel like dyeing his hair too or something?
I don't know. It's weird. It didn't distract me because I guess it's just a thing that happens to people.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen that on anyone's face before.
Plus, something about red hair and Scottish just works.
Certainly.
So I just didn't think about it.
I know it's a stupid nitpicky complaint, but it legitimately bothered me for a couple minutes.
No, I get hung up on things like that sometimes. It wasn't the beard that got me.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's always McAvoy's hair. Like just generally the way his hair is always slicked back in situations where it would not stay slicked back.
Gotcha.
But I guess that's just a movie thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just the color difference really, really threw me for a loop there. Okay, what else? I know I had some other little things I wanted to mention. What the fuck was he watching on TV with the Frankie thing?
Oh,
what the fuck
Frank
was
Steinbottom? Is that his name?
Yeah, Frank Steinbottom. Maybe that's where I got Frank from in the middle of that.
Yeah, Frank. I mean, there was a movie with Michael Fassbender last year called Frank, kind of based on that character. He was an early '90s, late '80s television icon in Europe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cultural differences, I guess.
Yeah, apparently the movie that with Fassbender was incredible, but I never saw it. I just got
Yeah.
weirded out by the guy with the head.
When I saw that paper mache head, I'm like, oh my god, it's that's real. And then I actually ended up looking it up, but yeah, the guy who made Room made Frank the movie.
Yeah, his name is the
Lenny.
comedian. His name is Chris something.
Oh, I thought it was Lenny Abramson.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I just know peripherally about it.
Okay, fair enough. No, I was like, what is that?
Yeah, it's an actual thing, and I'm sure if we were Scottish, we'd get it.
Yeah, like I had that with a lot of things. Like, I probably just don't understand this because I'm not Scottish.
Wait, Steve, were you saying that the guy who plays Frank is Chris Ivey?
Yes, probably.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking the guy who made the movie was Lenny Abramson. Okay.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure about the movie. I didn't see the movie. I was just talking about the guy who plays the characters, Frank, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even know that thing existed until that movie came out. Apparently, a lot of people grew up on him.
Yeah.
I got Happy from my local television station, Happy the Hobo. If anyone wants to learn about Happy the Hobo,
I mean, I just watched Teletubbies, but maybe I was.
Well, no, it's funny because it was like a local television program for children that would air on like Saturday or Sunday mornings called Happy the Hobo, and it was shot in the studio where I work now, and our station never throws shit away because, you know, they're still using computers from the 90s to run the teleprompter, and we opened up one of the old cabinets in the studio, and there are all these like fake trophies that they gave away on the show at one point. So there's like this weird ass trophy for the third time the Weather Girls met Happy, and I'm like, so it's like this really weird disjointed thing because I remember Happy the Hobo and he had like donut holes, you know what donut holes are?
Yeah.
He would like give those out to the kids in the morning and shit, and I remember I met him one time when I was a kid.
Whoa.
And now that's like gone and in the past, and there's just like remnants of it left in this place that I work now.
Really
So
weird.
poetic, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so poetic, except not at all. It's just fucking strange.
It is kind of bizarre.
But... it'd be like going to the set of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to film porn.
Oh God. I never actually watched Mr. Rogers, but even so.
There's an image for you. You get to keep that in your head forever now, Steve.
Ever since I was a kid, my image of Mr. Rogers was that Ultimate Showdown song where he wins.
Well, did you know that Mr. Rogers was a Marine?
I did not.
Marine sniper. Yeah, he was a Marine sniper. He always had to wear the sweaters to cover his tattoos.
That was terrifying.
So anyway, I think that'll about do it for the review, and we'll go ahead and move on to scores now. Let's see here. I guess I'll start just because. Okay, so I'm gonna give this movie 3.5 sounds like a fair score. I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5 really uncomfortable child rape scenes. Who wants to go next?
I don't know what I'm gonna say, but
I think I got something. So while you think of it, I'll go. I will give it 4.5 out of 5. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of how it works. 4.5 out of 5. I just had it and I lost it. Oh, never mind. 4.5 out of 5. Fourth wall breaking suicides.
and
Think about it. Every suicide's breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah. As a casual experience, I'd give it like a 3, but as like a powerful, like thought-provoking, awesome experience, it's like a 4. So I'm gonna go with a 3.5. I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5. Prank phone call sexes. Prank.
That was another scene where, like, it felt kind of unreal, but it's clearly not, because, like, she's just immediately attracted to him and then seems to go along with what he says. I'm like, wait, does she know that it's him now? Or
No.
I'm confused. That was a weird scene too. What?
Well, I think that she follows his advice.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
he gives me advice to play along, and she does. So
Yeah, but like she seems immediately attracted to him in the scene where he tells her that, and then she does follow along with the advice, and I'm just like, does she know it's him?
no, she follows along with the advice, but you see like she doesn't like to, like she's crying as she does it.
Oh, see, I did not see tears. She really seemed to be into that.
No, she wasn't at all. If you go back and watch it, you'll notice it probably, but she's not into
Okay.
it at all. And then she's really into him for getting this to happen, and that's when he frames the husband for it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, alright, that'll about do it. Shit, what are we gonna talk about next time? It was Milan's topic, but he's not here.
Discussion.
Hey, Connor, what do you got going on next week?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm working next Friday. I somehow got today off.
Topic.
Oh, need a debate topic.
Something that we can discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I've got one. I'm not sure if you guys did this, but I'm trying to get as much research on this topic done as possible because I want to potentially write my master's thesis on this.
Oh wow!
But I want to
set the bar kind of high.
I mean, I just need somewhere to kick around ideas at this point, but I think this might work. How about we potentially talk about where's the line between superheroes being moral exemplars and psychotic power fantasies?
Yeah, I can dig that.
I'm trying to see if I can boil it down to a shorter sentence, but basically just that. Like, what makes any of that difference? Are they exemplars because they're power fantasies? Is a power fantasy inherently not a good moral exemplar? How does that work?
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I can dig that. That'll be fun.
Cool.
Alright, so we'll be talking about that whole ball of stuff next week. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. If you watch this movie, you should probably...
Take a shower?
I don't know. Yeah, take a shower, go do something just generally positive with your life for maybe an hour or two. Just anything, just something good. Go volunteer at a shelter or something, I don't know. Anyway, until next time, I'm the philosopher.
I'm the politician.
And I'm the guest.
You need something better, Connor.
I know I do.
No, I know. You're the sexually traumatized guest.
I'm the sexually traumatized guest.
Yay. And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.